A big thanks and hello to Peter Fergusson, Business Manager at ITV. ITV is one of the best known TV channels and media brands at the heart of popular culture in the UK. Peter is a senior member of the ITV Great North team, a specialist team of media professionals offering the entire portfolio of ITV products to advertisers in Tyne Tees, Border and Scotland. TV is one of the most effective advertising mediums with a unique combination of audience reach and significant dwell time spent watching programmes, both live and in catch-up. The latest industry data suggests that TV reaches circa 70% of Europe's population daily, with average daily viewing times over 3 hours. And the channel has also proven remarkably resilient in an era of immense disruption. The emergence of on-demand operators such as Netflix and the growth of online video platforms such as YouTube have changed the way we consume programs and content. However, data shows that TV consumption remains strong, and its advertising options allow for trust and emotive engagement to a depth not possible through other advertising mediums. Today, we'll be discussing Peter's informed views on how TV advertising has evolved since he started in the industry over 30 years ago, including the impact of the global pandemic on advertising and how the release of restrictions, combined with channel innovation, is delivering a recovery roadmap for the advertising channel. So, welcome, Peter. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. Should we start by taking it back to the beginning then? I think it's like the mid-80s when you started your career in media over 30 years ago.
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction and the invitation, Stephen. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm going to rewind back to the days when I had recently left. I recently left Napier College, as it was then, before it even became a university, and I had done a diploma in communications, which was economics and journalism and PR and marketing, and I had a job with the regional press in Dumfries and Galloway. So it was a company called Scottish and Universal Newspaper. So it was basically selling press advertising in 2 local titles. And I was actually sitting watching TV one night, and believe it or not, an ad came on Border Television, and it was for an advertising sales executive based at the studios in Carlisle. So me having had 3 years media experience in press, I thought, interesting. So I applied for that job, and after a couple of interviews in Carlisle, I took on the role at Border. So I mean, in those days, without wishing to sound like an old git, as they say, things were a lot different. So in those days, Border Television had a full studio site in Carlisle. They also used to make quite a few programs there for the network, including shows like Mr. and Mrs. and Highway, the sort of religious show on a Sunday. And we had I had a remit to sell advertising across the Border region. So that was Southern Scotland, West Cumbria, the Isle of Man, as it turned out. And just thinking back to then, I mean, a 3-spot peak package on Border in 1988 would cost the princely sum of £220 for 10 seconds. And, the production of TV ads, whilst nationally was pretty sophisticated, from a local perspective, it was really quite basic. So you could have what they called like a tape slide commercial, which was a 35mm slide and a recorded voiceover. And that used to be broadcast as a stills, as just a still commercial. And in those days, ITV was a network of individual companies, each chasing the national share of revenue. So, for example, we'd be competing against STV, against Tyne Tees, Granada, for that share of revenue. And Border share in those days was like 0.7% of the network revenue against an audience of about 1.18%. And then basically Border then evolved. Border, because it was difficult to expand as a company, it then evolved into radio. So it took on, or it won the Century Radio franchise in the Northeast, set up Century Radio, then followed by taking a share in Scot FM in Central Scotland, then Century in Nottingham, Century in the Northwest of England, and then they set up a company called Border Radio Holdings. And in 2000, Border was actually bought by Capital Radio, and then they sold the TV license to Granada. So I started working for Granada basically in 2000. In 2004, Granada and Carlton merged and formed ITV. So from 2004, I worked with ITV, still based in Carlisle. In 2012, there was a bit of a restructure within ITV, and an opportunity arose for me to take the business manager job across Tyne Tees and Border region, which I did. Was happy to do so. And then in 2017, I got a bit of an extension to my role. So I also look after ITV's regional commercial teams across the UK, with the exception of Manchester and London. So I look after Leeds, Birmingham, Norwich, Wales and West, Channel Islands. So I've got quite a broad remit there. But yeah, the pace of change has been significant over the past 33 years, I would say. And that's a bit of a potted history of me, Steve.
Right, amazing. I'm very impressed that you remembered all the stats and so forth. Well done. And I think it goes without saying that the channel advertising options, particularly and within an ever-evolving media mix of opportunity out there for advertisers, generally speaking, it's certainly reflective of the channel as well. It's evolved, hasn't it? From, you mentioned there around the type, touched on the type of adverts and single stills and so forth, but the actual inventory of advertising's evolved quite a bit, I imagine.
Well, I mean, I suppose the platforms have evolved in as much as, the ITV regionally still offers advertisers the opportunity to advertise on the local ITV region, but we have, a network of digital channels now. So we have ITV2, ITV3, ITV4, ITVB, CITV. We have the ITV hub now. So our sort of, our menu is vastly increased as time's gone by. But I think in terms of the customer base that we have, it is everything from national brands spending significantly across all of the UK, right down to smaller local brands who choose their own relevant ITV region and actually just advertise in their own locale. So it's a great big evolution, Steve, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and with those different types of advertisers, naturally, there's sort of different objectives around, particularly, from a media planning perspective, top level, we often talk about like direct response and brand and, and I touched on in the intro, the ability of TV as a channel from an advertising medium that's never really been met by any other channel in terms of that reach, that ability to reach consumers and other businesses within their own homes, essentially, or within their places of work. It's quite unique in that respect.
I mean, the beauty of TV and ITV now, as was when I first joined ITV, was the whole mass simultaneous reach. So there are not that many media opportunities whereby, let's take an example, on Tyne Tees, for example, that a single spot on Tyne Tees, between Emmerdale and Coronation Street could probably reach about 15% of that adult population just with one spot. So it has that ability to drive coverage very, very, very quickly indeed. And for certain brands, for brands that are looking at quick cover build, looking at specific retail events, looking to get that mass simultaneous reach, it's still a hugely effective medium, no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what, from a media planning perspective, I guess from the agency side and also in-house media planners, I guess, one thing that's apparent over that period of time you've been involved in the industry certainly is the broadening out of advertising options that are out there, certainly on a channel level and then even within channel. And I think that's reflective of the channel itself. The growth of different consumption habits. On demand's a big one. Versus live TV, but also the growth of digital, which is also a big development, and how that's reflective in, say, ITV's inventory, advertising inventory options. So there's that broadening out of opportunity from an advertising perspective, and also the integration, I'd suggest, of TV advertising as with other channels, rather than it being it's probably less siloed than it's ever been, really. And when you go live on TV, you think about, as you should, your other channels and how that reach and impact will influence perhaps other presence that you've got.
Yeah, I think the heart of it is the actual content itself, Steve. And what ITV has done and always and still does is offer almost something for everyone. So from high quality drama through the soaps, through the factual, through to daytime, there is a broad range of genres, a broad range of programming. And whilst we're it is evolving in terms of the targeting opportunities, but certainly I think as a broadcaster and as an organisation, we're two things. One, we're about offering a diverse range of entertainment for the UK population, and we're also about reflecting life in the UK. I think when you look at the soaps, for example, Emmerdale and Corrie, the appeal of those is engaging storylines, true to life, true to life storylines, so that people who are probably undergoing similar situations in their own lives. I think that, we clearly with the soaps, we've had to recognise the fact that we've been through this dreadful situation, or going through the dreadful situation with COVID, and that's been reflected in the storylines. From a drama perspective, drama tends to be more about escapism, more about generally speaking, 1 hour, taking yourself to a different place and becoming immersed in that program. And I think from a drama perspective, the ITV programming budget is north of £1 billion per annum, so it's a significant investment. And for example, 1 hour of quality drama costs between £750,000 and £1 million per episode. So the investment's huge, the production values are huge, the actual investment in the cast, in the writers, the actual production itself is immense. And you make a very valid point. It's about how do we as a broadcaster take that content, and being mindful of the consumer's changing viewing habits, is how do we make sure we're still relevant today, and our whole ability to deliver that content now in different places through the ITV hub means that people can watch TV on their terms, rather than have to actually 9 o'clock Wednesday night, I'm tuning in. They can watch it when they want now, really.
Yeah,
been a big evolution, that definitely.
Absolutely.
But also I think from a diverse range of programming perspective, I mean, let's look at where we are in the here and now. So last night, I'm going to talk about the Euros final there. That was actually viewed by just around 30 million overall between the BBC and ITV. So it's a huge reach. I mean, ITV's share of that was around about the 6 million mark, but that's to be expected. But interestingly, the England-Denmark game was, I think, it peaked at about 27, 28 million. Yeah. So just a huge, I think the share was between 80 and 90% at its peak as well. So just such a massive ability to reach such a high number of people in an entirely relevant, sporting event that's massive for the UK. It's a great thing for a broadcaster to be able to do. But when you look at how people are viewing, you are seeing an increasing number of people actually watching the programming on ITV Hub because it's on their terms.
Yeah. I know, that's great, and it's good that you're able to be agile and basically be able to offer and adapt to sort of consumer behaviour in that way. That's great. Yeah. And certainly, listening to what you're saying, Peter, and certainly knowing ITV and seeing how they position themselves on the internet and visibly, it is very much, to your earlier point, they see themselves very much as a sort of content sits at the core of what they do. And the amount, I don't think people realize, some of those stats you quoted there around the amount of investment that goes into content production, and naturally in today's world, that's served on a global scale. Yes, there's a UK and European centricity to it, but it's accessible across the world. And that's and it's like everything else in today's environment. There's such a proliferation of content. There's so many options out there for people to consume content. That investment in quality is critical, really. And I see that coming through.
I think it is, absolutely, Steve. And I suppose where we've been over the past year and a half with COVID, I mean, it was like a bolt from the blue for the economy, wasn't it? And all of a sudden, we went from moving into 2020 in quite a good place to a very, very sudden and erosion of our ad revenues, as for understandable reasons many businesses just could no longer advertise. I mean, the retail, travel, most sectors were hit. So we had a very tough sort of a tough Q2 and summer in 2020. But by the same token, when things opened up again, it bounced back very, very quickly. So almost as quickly as it disappeared, it reappeared. And I think many businesses were agile in terms of their messaging. I think many businesses understood that you can't just suddenly withdraw and become invisible, because that has a long-term damaging impact on your business. So they had to, we were encouraging businesses to try and maintain a level of visibility just to protect their brand, to communicate with their audience, and to let people know they were there for them when things began to improve. So that was that's what they did. So yeah, it has been tough, but I mean, 2021 has got off to a really solid start. There's no doubt about it. And I think from a commercial perspective, what ITV has done is we've really engaged quite strongly with the business community. So we've put into play quite a few incentives to try and give people a reason to talk to us and to keep spending with us, and to incentivize them to do so. So we've got. Regionally, we've got new to TV packages for airtime and VOD. We've got a very, very highly skilled and well-equipped commercial production unit across the UK. So wherever you are in the country, if an advertiser does not have the ability to produce an ad, then we can do it for them. So we've been these guys have been very, 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 very busy indeed. We've got our backing business proposition, which is a match funding proposition for new to TV brands, subject to fulfilling certain criteria. So that's been hugely successful. We've got a B2B growth pot, which is an incentive for businesses who are reaching out to that business community. So and then in Love Island, which obviously is running at the moment, we had an incentive for video on demand advertisers, whereby if they committed to Love Island, we were offering a bit of added value within that, which again has been hugely successful for us. So we kind of, I think what we did was we accelerated our strategy in terms of understanding that we've got to try and keep growing the brand count. We've got to try and keep demonstrating to potential advertisers that it works for them. So we've got quite a good range of case studies sitting on the ITV Media website. And the heartening thing for me over the past 33 years is, back then, people used to say, my goodness, that campaign worked well. And they're still saying that to this day. So we're seeing, that whole impact that it can deliver, what it can do quickly for a brand, actually has not diminished over time.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. It's great to hear. Yeah. And that certainly comes across from a media planning perspective. I think it anchors back against that, ability of the channel to reach audiences effectively, and the uniqueness that it has in terms of reach and dwell time and so forth. But it's great to hear, the reflective insight around how the last 16 months has, affected the channel as it has every channel really, for reasons that we talked about a number of times on this podcast. But really good to hear that, and I know this firsthand, that you've had innovative solutions and solutions to encourage your advertisers to continue. And in my view, personal view, is that, as with a lot of the change that's happened over the period since Q1 last year, a lot of the winners in certain sectors will be those that adapt as effectively as they can. And part of that adaptation will be what they've done to date, but also how they treat the forthcoming period around, there are opportunities now to step change, sector by sector, and gain coverage, market share, etc. And as with many of these challenging situations when we've seen economic downturns in the past, I know from a TV advertising perspective, there's case studies there of those that have actually spent out of that type of recession period and actually gained significant market share, and that's really transformed their business commercially. So I think there's a lot to consider there. And actually, when we were talking earlier around what's coming next, and you've got this sort of webinar coming up that's actually focused on Christmas, in later this month. So it just it immediately sort of makes me think anyway, we're not planning ahead as you should be, but it's not going to be long till we're around that period and into next year and so forth. So
well, I suppose with the disruption on the high street and the fact that Christmas is such a key period for many advertisers, I think we felt that it was a good time in the summer, a good time to have a webinar and to talk about it. So our managing director of daytime, Emma Gormley, is going to be giving her take on Christmas at ITV. And this is the sort of time of year when we're looking for Christmas briefs, because obviously people are beginning that planning process for the back end of the year. So we've got some insights, and our client planning and strategy team have been thinking about what does Christmas mean in the UK, and the sort of topics they're looking at are things like togetherness, magic, nostalgia, journeys, and generosity. And it's how we sort of convey that into the brands and work with the brands to try and help them think more than just about spot advertising, and how they can sort of I suppose grow their share of the Christmas spending cake, really. So that's coming up the 21st of July.
Yeah, that's great. And from a media planning perspective, I mean, certainly how myself and my colleagues would approach it, trying to drive maximum value from the investment through integration, and also looking at the different wealth of different options tactically that you can have against that spend to try and get the most for your particular brand is certainly something that should be recommended. And as we think about what's coming next, I think I've heard whispers of a couple of things in terms of trends that hopefully I don't want to ask you to share anything you can't at this stage, but are you able to shoppable TV? Is there anything you can help?
Yeah, what an exciting innovation shoppable TV is. So it's running as a test on Love Island at the moment in partnership with Boots, actually. So as I say, it is a test, and it's in its very early stages. And basically what it is, it's available on LG smart TVs post 2019. And it offers the viewer the opportunity to actually access via their LG remote control products that are pulsed through to the viewer. Every half an hour, it's called impact notification. So I had to remind myself what it's called. An impact notification is sent through, and it means that as a viewer, you can use your LG remote, you can go on and you can actually access the products either by getting a link sent to your mobile phone, or by obviously traditional means going through the website. So that is something that I think will be rolled out over time, but it's brand new, and it's thus far I think the signs have been very encouraging, Steve, on it. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And
stuff.
Yeah, sounds great. And it's great to have that level of innovation within what's often viewed as a traditional advertising channel, and it certainly aligns with some of the other trends and innovations that we're seeing through other digital-led channels. So, well done ITV for testing that out.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. And of course we've got Planet V, which has been launched with great success, actually, and that is our addressable self-serve VOD booking service, actually. So now we've managed to roll that out to over 600 buyers across the UK, so that agencies can actually have their own login. They can go into Planet V. They can actually plan and book their own campaigns on an automated basis. So that's hugely exciting for us and for the agencies and for the brands themselves. So there's no doubt we're going to see pretty unprecedented levels of growth, both in terms of brand count on VOD and in revenue, video on demand, as we move forward. So yeah, it's an increasingly important part of the business, no doubt about it.
Fantastic. And on that self-serve model, is that specifically for video, just for our listeners, is that specifically for video on demand campaigns?
Yes.
And how does it work with like new advertisers? Is it,
Yeah.
Is that any different? Is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, how it works is that we would work with an ad agency and offer them an onboarding process. So we offer them a bit of a training seminar just to explain how the whole system works. Then they are onboarded as an agency, and then they can actually go in physically, book their own campaigns. And the big difference between video on demand and linear TV, broadcast TV, is the whole measurement process. Well, it's the way it's booked and the measurement process. So actual linear TV is still booked by our activation teams across the country, across the regional offices and in London itself, whereas video on demand. So in a linear TV campaign, you're buying television ratings, so you're buying TVRs, whereas on video demand, it's sold on a one-on-one impression. You're buying video impressions, but the targeting options on Planet V are immense through broadcast and fair opportunities. You've got our first party registered data. You've got third party registered data opportunities via experience, so you can build bespoke target audiences. We've got some unique ITV products that allow you to actually plan the campaigns in a bespoke way for your brand. So I guess it's almost like the best of both worlds. So you can still access your mass audiences via TV, but for that more granular requirement, you can book via Planet V.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for that explanation. Yeah. That's great. All good stuff. I mean, I think on when you think about the future, just to put forward a personal viewpoint, based on sort of strategic developments, I guess, that we've seen over the last sort of 2-3 years, we've talked before, Peter, around certain brands referencing, naturally there's been a significant growth in digital, exponential growth, as we're all aware, but a number of brands, leading advertising brands as well, have been referencing sort of over optimization, too much reliance, almost shifting too much into a reliance on particularly performance digital, and seeing a drop in effectiveness of that. And you can go online, you can read these types of viewpoints through sort of leading industry publications. So, and it anchors back against that initial point of, the basis of marketing around reaching new audiences, effectiveness, building brand awareness, building brand loyalty. And I believe, my personal viewpoint is, we're almost, as with many things, coming 360. So that, people are realizing that, yes, digital's super important, depending on, your brand and your marketing mix, but actually it's not a displacement essentially for those traditional marketing activities. If you've got ambitions and objectives around growth, around market share growth, out beating your competition, whatever that might be, as we said, TV has a unique standpoint in terms of being able to reach audiences effectively. So it'll be interesting as we sort of move out of COVID, out of the financial impacts that's had on budgets and growth and, just general life, and budgets return and hopefully some sort of normality returns, a new normal perhaps. It'll be interesting to see how, marketing investment shifts and how that impacts some of these new innovations that are coming out.
I mean, we talk regularly to a wide range of agencies and clients across the UK, Steve, and there are more and more conversations around how can I reach new customers. So obviously a brand has a digital marketing strategy, but it tends to be restricted to digital marketing. And what we've been able to demonstrate is how we can come in and actually supplement that digital marketing strategy. So what we have the ability to do is take that brand name to a range of potential customers that weren't considering that brand, that are way more top of funnel than the people that they're currently talking to. So that whole ability to get top of funnel has been. I think we've found that more and more people are thinking a bit more about the longer term strategy of their brand and the longer term health of their brand. So whilst performance strategies and performance campaigns clearly are about the here and now, I think the message about, okay, that's fine, but we can augment that with more top of funnel potential customers, but it's also about consideration for the future. So when people talk about wastage, we're talking about, well, okay, but what about those that are going to be coming into the market in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and about how front of mind you can be as a brand with those people that currently don't know about you, aren't aware of you, and help drive that consideration for future purposes. And I think there's still a lot to be said for that, definitely, without sounding like an old fool. Probably too late, but anyway.
No, fantastic. And I think that's a great point to round this off on, Peter. We're sort of coming towards the end of the 30-minute slot. And thank you so much. That was great. Nice whistle-stop tour there. And, it goes without saying, if there are any listeners from brands or agencies that they can find you if they're interested in discussing TV advertising further. Or otherwise, and thank you again so much, and let's do it again sometime in the next few months.
My pleasure, Steve. I really enjoyed that. Thanks very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks very much. Speak soon then.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.